Hi, everyone. Welcome to our first session as the Systems Innovation Food Hub team. We're going to be interviewing Viliana from Reimagined Futures, and she will be sharing about her work of mapping the Catalan food systems. We're all very excited, but before we dive into it, we want to share a little bit about us and our team and systems innovation. This is us. My name is Chavi. I'm the head of design at Future Food Institute, and I'm extremely passionate about helping people see the problems in our world more systemically, more holistically, and I believe that's gonna help us all just improve and make the world a better place if only we can see those interconnections. And I'll pass it on to Jill.
Hi everyone, so I'm Jill and I'm working at OECD on food system transformation in Sahel and West Africa. And as a researcher, I'm mainly working on analytical projects, but I'm convinced that we won't be able to address current and future challenges without looking at food system as a whole. Food systems are so complex and they are changing really rapidly, so that's why I'm happy to be part of the Food Hub to promote a holistic approach and when dealing with food and agriculture and to promote system level change. So thank you and hope you will enjoy the session.
Hi everyone, I'm Astra. I'm actually joining from India. I actually freelance with the startups working in agri and food systems. My main area of joining SI is this Systems Innovation Network platform here is to actually bring all the stakeholders involved in innovations together and make the change happen, because we are all looking at how we can redesign and re-influence how the food systems currently work. So we are here to make that movement happen together as SI Food Hub. Thank you.
Great. So what is SI Food Hub? We're an online collaborative platform for systems thinking and systems change. We work to empower a diversity of individuals and organizations in learning and applying systems innovation ideas and methodologies towards tackling complex challenges. What's the plan? And can you see my screen? Because I see it blank. There. We are developing a hub for systems innovation in food and agriculture. SI Food Hub will be a unique space for bringing people and organizations together for shared learning about systems thinking in the context of food and how to apply systems innovation methods and tools towards tackling these challenges across the entire agri-food supply chain. Why are we doing it? And my slides are really slow for some reason. Okay. Today, we find that many of the challenges we face in our food systems locally and globally are fundamentally complex. Questions such as how to more effectively adapt to the changes in our environment brought about the climate change, or how to create food systems that promote health and connect with ecosystems. These kind of challenges require new ways of thinking, especially because up till now we have been operating in silos. How can we collaborate? How can we come together as organizations and individuals, the ones that are lacking capacity in looking at these challenges holistically? What is our new approach? If complexity is the problem, then systems thinking is the solution. Systems innovation is a new approach to innovation that tries to tackle complex problems through the use of systems thinking and new ways of organizing via networks so as to realize systemic, holistic, transformational change. The aim is to tap into and unlock the huge unrealized potential of systems thinking to tackle wicked problems, to provide a space for people to learn about and apply these ideas with a diversity of areas. Yeah. So what are our communities? Systems level innovation can only be realized by ecosystems of diverse actors. We see SI Food Hub as a platform for building a systems innovation community in food systems, and which is why we're gathering you all here. engage in these relevant conversations as teams, as parties that are stakeholders that are interested in the process of co-learning and capacity building. What do? We learn, connect, and create, providing learning opportunities to learn about systems thinking and systems innovation, connecting people to enable ideas and projects and experiences and collaborations happen, and helping create, working on real-world projects, co-creation, providing design innovation services. And finally, it's time for us to get into the main part of our session. We are here with Viliana, and she's passionate about systems change through organizational transformation and has 9 years of experience in social and environmental sustainability. She spent 4 years in key roles at Ashoka, the biggest global network of social entrepreneurs, where she designed and led network innovations in the food system, before she moved to Teach First UK, where she led a social innovation ideation and incubation program. I'll hand it over to you, Viliana, and if you would like to add anything for your introduction. Thank you so much for being here today, everyone.
Thank you, Charlie. Hi, everyone. It's very nice to meet you and to see some familiar faces as well. And when I was watching the chat, there was literally the whole globe here. So thank you so much. Thank you for the Barcelona gang as well. I see we are a heavy presence here, which is very nice. So my name is Viliana, but you can call me Vili. I'm the co-founder of Reimagined Futures. And what we do at Reimagined Futures, we basically try our best to support businesses, NGOs, and local governments to use systems thinking to design their social and environmental sustainability or social and environmental impact strategies. And we have clients across all these 3 sectors. We use different tools basically to do this systems thinking capacity building. One of our most popular tools is this causal loop diagrams, which we also call systems maps. Before I start, I want to credit all of our methodology and terminology to the Omidyar Group, which we follow quite a lot. If you want to learn more about what I will share with you in this in the next 30 minutes, you can actually do their 12-week online course on the Acumen platform. I think one of my friends at the SI Hub will share the link to the course. You just missed the autumn edition, but the spring edition is coming up, so I highly recommend it. Basically, for the last 3 years, we have been doing the systems mapping, very much based on their methodology. We've adapted it, of course, we've learned, we've created lots of templates. I think we've improved it in some aspects, but most of our work is based on that. So highly recommend it. Before I start, like sharing with you kind of broadly what the methodology is and the approach, I would love to just check in and see how many of you are familiar with systems mapping? Because I see some faces that I know are systems mapping experts. Okay, well, we have a little Zoom poll that I already saw some raised hands. And maybe if you just quickly tick the box that you think is fitting for your level of systems mapping experience. Where are you in your journey? Whether you don't know anything about it, whether you're a beginner, whether you have done a few maps and feel quite confident, or are you a full-on expert and actually you should really advise us, because we definitely are not at the very top where we're still learning a lot. Yeah, do you see the poll? Okay, maybe we can, oh, you don't see the poll, Josephine. So no one sees the poll?
No, actually everyone has answered.
Okay, can we see the answers, please?
Let me see.
Yeah, just a moment. Can you see it?
Yes, thank you. Okay, so actually a lot of you guys are very experienced, so maybe you can actually help us in this session or later on if you want to support each other in your journey. Fantastic. We have a few experts as well. 5% of us are experts. This is great. This means 5 people here are really advanced. Fantastic. Well, before I start, I also really want us to interact a little bit. It's hard with 100 people in a call. So if you use the reaction in Zoom, if you give me a heart, if you particularly like something, if you give me a little poo or a little boredom or a little crying face, from time to time, I'll be able to know what's happening. I'll get that feedback and I will adjust my presentation if something is unclear, etc. And if I don't see your reactions, maybe my essay friends can help me and can point it out, saying, "Oh, there's 3 crying faces. Something is very unclear." Yeah. All right. Okay. Well, so far only hearts and smiles. That's a great start. I will start by sharing a little bit about the methodology and why we use it. Okay. So you all see my screen, right?
Yes, we see it.
Okay, fantastic. So the systems practice methodology and why actually clients hire us, basically, and why it will be useful for you as well, is because it really helps us think more systemically. It helps us to have more holistic and diverse conversations. And the word conversation is quite important for Reimagined Futures. We really are bringing people to talk and to try to understand each other's perspectives. And it helps us understand different mental models which drive the behavior of a complex system. And in very simple terms, systems practice is about putting systems thinking into practice and helping us to understand how interrelated and complex dynamics of a particular system work and why are they keeping the system in its problematic state. Okay, and why we apply it as well is this process, in general, it helps us zoom out and fully understand the system within which the sustainability challenge that we are tackling persists. It helps us also build movements of diverse stakeholders in order to change a system which is perpetuating a complex sustainability challenge. For example, we are now going to work on the cacao industry and the child labor issues associated with the cacao industry. And we're going to work with a key player that is trying to build a movement in that industry. And they're using the systems mapping process as a movement building tool. And finally, it's very helpful to skill up your employees and collaborators in thinking. And this is a key outcome for any of our projects. And it's one of the most valuable things that we actually bring to our clients. And it's important to also mention that for any complex problem to be solved, the individual players all need to recognize how they unwittingly contribute to it. That's what David Peter-Straw say. And this is really talking about unintended consequences and the short and long-term outcomes that we all contribute to create, and almost always with our best intention. Okay, we're not judging anyone, but it is very difficult to zoom out of your linear interventions and kind of see the big picture. And systems mapping helps do that. And finally, I guess what most of you are here for is to figure out how we do it. As I said, this is a very quick, short introduction of our process. And if you want to do more, you can follow the Omidyar Group course on Acumen. But very briefly, I'm going to use the case study of the food system, of the Catalan food system. So the food system that we mapped here in Catalunya. And this is the province in Spain where Barcelona is part of. And it's a very interesting and diverse food system. And we were hired by the Ministry of Environment and Agriculture here in Catalunya, in the Catalan regional government, to do this systems map. And we did it about a year ago. So one caveat is, 2 caveats actually that I want to mention is, we are not food system experts. So I know this is the food hub that is hosting this event, but I'm not a food system expert, so I wouldn't. I'm not that confident, and I'm not an expert in the content of this map. We are the methodology people. We are the facilitators. We brought this content to life through the mapping process. And the second caveat is that this was we created this map a year ago, and actually in the last year we've done another 3 maps, and we're so much better at mapping. So this is probably not our top map, but it's a very good example to show. Okay, so what we do when we are starting a systems map, we firstly work with our client to create a core team of 3 to 5 people who we work with very regularly. We meet them every 2 weeks for 2 hours. In between those 2 weeks, we're working quite a lot with check-in, etc., to really make sure this map is grounded in the needs of the client. Then we also have an extended team of 5 to 10 people of experts on the topic. So these are people that we involve quite a lot in interviews and focus groups, etc. We ask them a lot for their expertise and their content knowledge. And then we have a group of participants. It can be 50, it can be even 100, to be honest, depending on the format. If we do an online mapping process, we can have more people. We've done it in person as well, and it's of course much more powerful. And these are people that we invite to our workshops. And how the process starts. So we have a kickoff process or period. It can last up to a month. It's not just one meeting. It really involves us creating a core team. It involves us and explaining their roles and kind of really understanding this clearly. Then we define the purpose of the map and the overall topic and the timeline that actually we work with. Usually a map, I think the fastest we've ever done it is 6 months. So usually it's about 10 months. It can take up to a year. 10 months would be a very comfortable mapping period, okay? Anything below 6 months is crazy. And then we work on something very important, defining our guiding star, our near star, and framing questions. To explain to you what these things are, I'm actually going to use the map which you all have access to. You have seen, maybe I'll share it in the chat as well, just so that you can check it out in more detail after the session. But this is the final work that was submitted to our clients on this map. So a guiding star, this is what we really have to start with. You know, in order to create our map, we need to know what our guiding star is. The guiding star is our very long-term impact goal. That is not something that one organization in particular will solve. It's something that we all contribute to. It's our North Star. In the case of the Catalan Food System, our guiding star is a food system in Catalonia that is sovereign, fair, equitable, sustainable, and healthy for the people, the territory, and the planet. So as you see, it's a very broad goal. Okay, and again, this text is not mine. It comes from our core team. We obviously helped them to phrase it, etc., but it is something that they came up with. Then our near star is more of the medium-term outcome goal. That's usually more tangible. In this case, don't forget our client is the government, so the near star is very big as well. But in this case, our near star is a circular, fair, and equitable food value chain. Then we have a framing question. This question is basically the main question that our map is going to answer. This is what we are answering through the map, so it's a very important question. In our case, it's what forces prevent the circularity, fairness, and equity of the Catalan food value chain. So it's what is keeping it away from this circular and sustainable state. And then we also always, in a systems map, we always need to set some boundaries in order to keep our sanity, because we can be mapping forever and this map never finishes. So we have to put some boundaries. For example, like a geographical boundary in this case is Catalunya. So we're not looking at the whole of Spain, we're not looking at the world, we're looking at the Catalan system. We are looking at, we're using a definition of sustainability as a boundary as well. And we had a few other boundaries that we looked at. And then once we defined this whole process, we could start with the actual mapping. This is the end product. This is the map that we ended up with, but this is 6 months later. So let me bring you back to the presentation just so that we can see what's the next stage once we have our core definitions, boundaries, etc. We start identifying the main forces. So these are a bit of this is an understanding stage, so it's not what actually you would see in the map, but it's really important to get us thinking systemically. So we started by identifying enablers. These are the things that are helping the system reach more healthy state, and inhibitors, the opposite of enablers, what is bringing the system further away from the guiding star. And we do that by reviewing the existing research that's provided to us by the core team, by gathering information from the core team and the extended teams through interviews, through focus groups, through templates that they complete, etc. Then we group those enablers and inhibitors into core teams. We prioritize those teams, and then we do something called an SAT analysis. And I'm going to show you in our case what this looked like. So this is a bit of a messy Miro board like that we used as a working space. And this is what it looked like. By the way, this is in Spanish because our whole process was in Spanish at the time. So some of it's in English, some of it's Spanish, but it's a working document. So we explored here the main enablers. These are all the pink post-its are enablers. Then we group them. You see these themes are orange themes are the main themes that are coming up in enablers. We have significantly more inhibitors, as you might expect. It's all these turquoise post-its with the yellow, with the orange themes. So you see this, it's a lot of input that we are processing at this stage. We then have to do a very difficult task of prioritizing 4 themes of enablers and 4 themes of inhibitors. And then comes a really difficult process, very intellectually challenging actually, called the SAT analysis of each theme of enablers and each theme of inhibitors. So we have done an SAT analysis of 8 themes in total, 4 inhibitors, 4 enablers. And the SAT means structural, attitudinal, and transactional analysis of upstream causes. So what is like really at the root cause of the issues, and of downstream effects. So what are the kind of trickling down effects of this upstream causes? Yeah, and we did that with all of the themes. It's and we do that in focus groups. We do it with the core team. We do it with the extended team. We do it based on literature. It's quite a time-consuming process. So we actually, what you see here, this here, takes us about 2 months. It's probably the most challenging part of the process. And once we have done all this analysis and forces and dynamics, and we are pretty lost and frustrated and in the groan zone, as some people call it, we start making feedback loops. And I imagine most of you are familiar with feedback loops. They look a little bit like this. So one example would be, okay, this one. So you see soil and water quality. If it deteriorates, it also decreases the amount of food that is produced. Actually, feedback. So that is the carbon capture. Okay, here is the climate change one. You know, the higher kind of effects of climate change, the more we see change in the climatic and soil characteristics, and the more we see change in the management of soil and land, and more carbon capture potential there is. This is the And then obviously we're helping to reduce climate change. This is I guess something that is bringing more health to the system. That is an example of a feedback loop. There are reinforcing and balancing loops, but I'm not going to go much into that because it's a whole field in itself. It's the very basics of systems dynamics. Once we go through we create loads and loads and loads of feedback loops, all of them individual. So this is another project that we're working on, and I'm just gonna show you kind of the magnitude, the number of loops that we are creating here. We're doing lots and lots, and they're all separated, and it's a messy process. Okay, and it's important that we don't connect these loops now yet to the map. That's really, really important. One of probably the biggest mistake that beginner mappers do is they start connecting loops. For us, it's very important to keep these loops separate. And once we create lots of loops, we can then start identifying the main dynamics in the system, the main story, the main narrative that's actually answering our framing question. And let me remind you that our framing question in this case is: what forces prevent the circularity, fairness, and equity of the Catalan food value chain? In this case, the deep structure, the main story, the main loop of this mapping process is the following. We've seen that conventional intensive production methods are really the predominant way of producing food, and they are actually leading to ecosystem destruction. I hope you can all see this loop well. So, you know, more we have these conventional production models, the more we have degraded our ecosystem. That degradation actually leads to damage to the individual and collective welfare, and also damages economic interests. Actually, before starting to lose their livelihoods, even big companies are feeling damage economically. That leads to more awareness of the environmental and social and economic problems associated with the food system. The more aware people are, the more social pressure there is actually to act more sustainably, and also there's more economic interest to act more sustainably, and that's kind of an important driver. And then we're seeing that there are some emerging adaptive strategies for the sustainability of the food system, which are reducing in the long term the conventional intensive production models. This is a very long-term loop though, and I don't want to say that this is the predominant dynamic right now, but this is the dynamic the Ministry of Environment and Agriculture really wanted to focus this map on. So once we have lots of loops and we have our deep structure, we start putting these things together in a map, in our first version of the map. And it's important to say first version because we often have 15, 20, 25 versions before we get to our final product. So this is an iterative process, and the next version is always better. So, but you need to go through those many versions in order to get to the best version. Okay, don't get frustrated if your first, second, third attempt. And once we have our map, this is how the map looks like. Lots of elements, lots of loops, etc. We actually start identifying the regions in that map. So in this map, in this case, we have 6 regions. Obviously, they're quite broad. Some elements fall into different regions, but for the sake of visual simplicity, we've color-coded them and we group them into regions. One of our, actually our biggest region is called the conventional intensive production models. And we see the, like, you know, the underlying dynamics here. A lot of it is around the fact that a very big percentage of Catalunya's GDP is coming from exportation of livestock and of meat and fish. Then we have our next, we have our next region, which is consumer behavior and engagement. And we're seeing things like pricing having a role on consumers, the sustainability movement rising, etc. Then I'm not going into details, by the way, of this because I have a very short time and you can review this in much more detail later on using that link that I sent you. We have the public policies region with international guidelines, the investment, and other conventions, etc. We have the technological and social innovation region. We have things like knowledge transfer, research, social innovation. Then we have the adaptation for the sustainability of the food system. So we have the kind of farmers movement into re-educating themselves. We have the impact of local food systems, etc., and the adaptive strategies. Then we have the territorial balance piece, which was very important for the Catalan food system in particular. So we have things like depopulation, we have the we have things like technology and digital communications. We have the SMEs. We have the land piece as well. So that was really an important piece. Okay, so that's our map and the regions. We obviously have a first and third and second version of it, and then we constantly validate it. The process is really based on validation and input from stakeholders. We conduct some interviews with experts, usually 4 to 5, but I'm sorry, 5 to 6, but for this one we've done at least 10 because it's a very big system, a very big map. We also do several workshops with with the participants. In this case, we carried out this whole process online. So we had about 60 people in each workshop to validate it, to improve it, to get the feedback. These workshops are not easy, by the way. They're painful for some people because it's probably the first time that they have the chance to zoom out and see how their work relates to everyone else's work. And for example, with the Catalan food system, we had such a difficult conversation with some pork farmers in Catalonia that are feeling a lot of pressure, very little support for them to transition. And at the same time, there was the alternative proteins people in the workshop. So it was such an interesting, rich conversation and discussion. And that's what our map is trying to bring together, is bringing all the dynamics and all the sides of the system. And then we do a lot of integration with the feedback. And once the map is ready, the map on itself is not the key and most valuable product. Actually, the most valuable thing that the map is used for is to identify leverage points. Leverage points, as we show you here, are these points in the system where a relatively small effort, a relatively small engagement can produce an outsized impact, or bigger impact than our own resources can usually produce. These are basically smart intervention points, and we're trying to identify those. In order to identify them, we either have a big workshop, like in the case of the Catalan system, we had a big workshop with a lot of participants trying to identify leverage points, or we can do it also just with the core team. We ask some key questions. For example, where is the system frozen? So what are these things that, where is the system really entrenched and nothing is likely to change in the medium term? Where is the potential energy for change in the system? So these are some basically opportunities, windows of opportunities for change. Then the third question that we ask is, where are the bright spots that we're already seeing? These are already emerging, interesting initiatives, interesting groups of people, interesting things that are happening towards the right direction. And then finally, the final question we ask is, where are we seeing ripple effects? So again, ripple effects is like the domino effect. Where can we knock one thing and we'll see a lot of change? For the purpose of this map, we identified a lot of, I think, 6, 7 leverage points, but we worked with our core team to select one that's particularly relevant, aligned with their strategic priorities, and and their strengths and some of their existing initiatives. And in the case of the government, that was alternative production, distribution and consumption models. That was the leverage point they chose to focus on. And with that leverage point, we created a leverage hypothesis. So this is their, I guess, the beginning of their impact, their theory of change, the beginning of their, how do they see they can contribute to this systemic transformation? So this is how they saw it. Like they were seeing how a support program for emerging from these niche alternatives currently would have a lot of impact on the system through local trade, will have a lot of impact on the consumer, will produce ripple effects in the investment piece, etc. So that was that basically. Leverage points are super important, and it's really one of the main things we actually get hired for. It's step 0 of your theory of change development. And what we usually do as a final deliverable is this Kuma presentation that you're seeing with the map and with the narrative. We create a final report, usually quite long, but I would say the Kuma presentation is much more valuable because you can interact with the map. And we do a final workshop so that all the participants in the process have a chance to see their final products, basically, that they have all contributed. Yes, I rushed through everything, and I hope you have the chance to look at it, look at the Kuma presentation in your own time. To do the course, to go into much more detail. I wanted to give at least 20 minutes for question and answer. I see the chat is very active. I haven't read one thing though, because I'm going through the presentation. So,
Viliana, it was a really active chat, and we have so many questions. I think we're going to need another 2 hours. But Asra here has been picking and choosing a couple of those for us, so we can start with those. And as in how much time we have, we can take some more. So some of them are more closed questions, like will we have access to the PPT? Will we have access to the Miro board? Feel free to answer that at any moment, Viliana. I'm gonna jump into more juicy questions. And that is...
Where's the screen you got?
Sorry, Chavi, you're muted.
Chavi, you're muted.
Oh, this happened again. So I was just saying that the chat was extremely active. Did you hear that, please? No. Yeah, and there are a lot of questions. We won't have time to get into all of them, but Asra has been helping us just pull in a few of those that can be interesting to answer in the next 20 minutes. There are also some closed questions like, will people have access to the PPT? Will they have access to the Miro board? Feel free to respond to that at the end as well. So let's start with our first question.
Chavi, you muted yourself again. I can read the question, no worries. So I see that the question is how to free creativity to imagine a desirable future, or otherwise at a guiding star, and how to free oneself from mental models of causality. A very nice question. Thank you so much. The pain of our life, in fact. What we do with our core team when we start in that kind of kickoff process, we actually do a little iceberg model exercise. And what we even do, you know, the iceberg model, we look at the patterns that we're seeing in the system. We look at the events, at the patterns, at the structures and the mental models, and we kind of try to become a bit more aware of it in order to free ourselves a little bit. And in fact, in our next systems practice project, we will also include a little 3 horizons workshop, which will help us, well, I guess, hope will help us to free ourselves from the mental models that we are so stuck with. And they also impact the way we create our guiding star, of course. Our reality, definitely. Oh, someone was going to suggest 3 horizons. Nice now. Yeah, so that's my my advice and what we've done so far. And also another thing really important is actually our systems practice and the whole facilitation, all 10 months or 6 months, whatever it is, it's facilitated using the art of hosting methodologies. And this is very important for us. All of me and all of my team are trained in art of hosting, and that's a methodology that really helps us engage with our stakeholders and make them fully immersed into this and create meaningful relationships, so that we can release our creativity, we can feel more comfortable and safe to be creative together. Art of hosting. Yeah.
Question 2.
The question 2, how do we find the strategic fit of the solution in the systemic context? Okay, well, the systems mapping process is not looking at solutions. That's quite important actually to mention. We're looking at the dynamics that are defining the system. So all these elements are interrelated together. They're working together in all sorts of ways. Most of the times we feel like they have a life on their own. Obviously, they can be, we can intervene in that life. But at that point of the systems mapping process is really just to identify those dynamics and to observe them and to understand them. We're not thinking of solutions at that stage. Once we identify leverage points, then we can start to think within the boundary of that leverage point, what could be an interesting solution. And using a more theory of change perspective. So I really see systems mapping as the foundation of all of this. Then you kind of create a theory of change, and then within the theory of change, you know, in order to make it, you use human-centered design, and you constantly check in with your map. Actually, one of the other tools that we're offering at Reimagined Futures is using the system map as an impact measurement post check, almost, you know, to make sure that, oh wait, I've done one thing, but is it systemic? I'm constantly checking in, and you don't even need to have a full system map. You can even just have a few of your main loops to really help you keep on track with your systemic approach. Because what's the point of doing a systems map if you then end up doing the same old stuff, right? Yeah.
Thank you so much. That is super relevant, and this time it did not automatically mute me. I love also how you're talking about linking other methodologies, because systems thinking, systems mapping is a very expansive analysis tool. But then there is a part where that stops, and then you bring in design thinking or lean startup and other methodologies that can take it forward. And then you can use the map as a post check. So I think that is very relevant. Also, that how do you bring other methodologies together? So thank you for bringing that up. We have one more question here. Let's look at that. Which tool?
Oh, sorry, you read.
Which tools do you use to build the interactive map? Is there some framework to facilitate the development?
So the tool that you just saw now, and that you can play around with in the presentation link that I shared, is called Kumo. It's a free tool when you use it publicly. So if your map is open to the public, if anyone can access it, it's free. If you want to have a private project, you have to pay for it. Is there some frameworks to facilitate this development? I'm not sure I understand what you might mean by this question, but the framework that we use, the methodology that we use, is the Omidyar Group methodology. So, and to use Kumo, to get really good at Kumo, there are plenty of tutorials and little tips. It's actually a very nice tool. I recommend it.
Thank you. I think we have another few minutes, so we can take some more questions. Let's see. We chose 3 of them. I'd like to speak a little bit about, you said government is your client. Is that always the case when it comes to systems mapping and complex projects? Or is it mostly the case? I'm trying to think from the point of view of people offering these services, or they want to engage in these issues with the right stakeholders.
Mhm. Well, for us, we've done quite a few maps with the Catalan government. Is mostly because we've also found people who really understand the value and see the value of it. So we've been very lucky, I guess, in that respect. I'm starting to see more demand for systems mapping in the NGO space and in the business space. Yet it's a very nascent field, and I still have to do a lot of persuading and explaining the value of it. But I really, in the 3 years that we've been doing it, I can see a change. And even like the other day, I saw a tender from a big alliance wanting a systems map, and I'm like, wow, that's really progressive. That's fantastic. And definitely the UK is more developed. The field in the UK is more developed. In Spain, it's still quite a new concept, a new tool. So we are very lucky that that the government here is quite progressive in that way. And also another thing is that it takes so long that businesses often don't have the time and want to rush us. They keep, like, so many people actually contact me, can we do that in 2 months? And I'm like, really not. I know. It's the process, and the beauty of it and the value of it is in the process. So.
That's beautiful. Yeah, and linked to that question is also how do you persuade people who don't understand the value of system mapping, right? Like, that's a connected question there.
Yeah, well, I shared with you a few of the possible values that that systems mapping brings, and depending on the priority of the client organization, whether this is to create a systemic strategy, whether this is to build a movement, whether this is to upskill their staff and their partners. It depends on the angle, but probably these 3 aspects are the most important ones that we try to work on, depending on the client and their interests. But yeah, I think most of the times it's all 3 in the same time. Like, everyone wants to build a movement, to upskill, and think more systemically for their strategy.
Yeah, because in premise, it's really a knowledge creation tool, right? There are all these knowledges that people have no idea about. So
you're muted again. I think every time you start sharing your screen, you go.
Yeah, Zoom is playing that game with me today, but I'm just going to read it out. So, when identifying causal links, how did you resolve disputes around whether or not a causal link was valid, or whether or not the polarity was positive or negative?
Mm-hmm. Very nice question. And as I mentioned, we had a few of these. We had some very heated workshops. Fantastic. That's exactly what a system map needs to do, to bring all these realities. And often they don't see each other, they don't talk to each other, and they don't know what's happening. Well, I think a system, that's the value of a system map, is that it represents the current dynamic. And there are always more than one loop, right? There is one dynamic is happening, but that's also connected to another, and that's triggering effects in many different places. I think at the end of the day, no, I don't think anyone is happy. I don't think a system map represents one person's or one group of stakeholders' vision until now, but it really covers everything. So so everyone is identifying themselves and their actions in that space, but that's but it's always brings more to their vision until now. So we, I think we just are good or have become better at presenting the reality and all the sides that some people don't see when they don't identify with. But yeah, I wouldn't say that people do 100%. Yes, that's my system, because it's uncomfortable to be part of it, to make that realization.
Yeah, which is where probably the art of hosting comes into play as well. Like how do you sit with that discomfort together? So there are a couple of questions more about the post process. One question is that is the data you use mostly qualitative or quantitative? Can you run any modeling based on this?
So the data that we take as input is a combination between research that has been provided to us by our core team and by other experts. It's also interviews with experts, it's focus groups, it's workshops. So it is a mix of qualitative and quantitative data that we take as input. What comes out is this map, so it's a lot more based on stories. So each loop is a story. They take it as a story, you know, and the map is a story on itself as well. So I would say it's more qualitative, what comes out of it. Modeling, no, we don't do modeling, and I don't think you'll be able to do much modeling because we just don't have that quantitative, that amount of quantitative data. But having said that, there's some amazing modeling happening with some of my colleagues are leading, and that's also an interesting complementary tool. But it's just not what we are trying to do. I think Reimagined Futures' purpose is really to bring systems thinking into the conversation, into how people relate and consider the impact and how people plan. So it's a lot more relatable, less theoretical, I guess, less easier to access.
Yeah, which has this question linked to it as well. How are the results then used in practice? Is it more around narratives? Yeah.
Strategy development mostly. So the map with the Catalan Food System has been used for the development of the 2023, 2025, I'm not even sure, strategy for the Ministry of Agriculture and Environment. We've had other mapping that has been used with the strategy development. We did a map on plastic pollution in the Mediterranean Sea for an EU project that used that map as the base for their next project that will be basically the pilots for plastic in the Mediterranean. It's really used as the base for theory of change and strategy. That's most of the use. It's been used as capacity building for system thinking. So I know that the ministry has run a few workshops on it, just so that people really understand that more holistic systemic vision of the ministry. And there are many uses, I guess. I don't know many of them because once we hand the map, it has a life on itself as well. But yeah, I would say mostly strategy.
Great. And one last question, maybe we have time for. How does the Catalan system compare to others? Would you expect a similar one in other regions? Probably more content related. But I don't know if you have thoughts.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to say so, actually. I think each locality, especially with food, is very particular. And there are some aspects of the food system here that are really specific to Catalonia. There's a strong sense of community here. and a sense of pride. And I guess that all comes with food. In fact, maybe other systems are similar. The way the exportation is structured is quite specific. But obviously the overall motifs are probably the same. Probably that deep structure that you saw might be applicable to other systems as well. But the regions and the development of the smaller loops might be a bit more specific. Because before that, we've actually done a global food systems map that was really broad, and it was for an incubator, for food incubator, an accelerator, and it was kind of looking at what will be the global leverage point. But I think it's different from the Catalan food system. So I would urge you to do your a map based on a particular locality. It's very interesting, especially in the food.
Thank you so much. We are really grateful for all your insights, Viliana. And we captured a big breadth of topics today. We looked at your process, to the challenges you faced, the recommendations you give, what kind of stakeholders to involve, how to involve them, how do we connect other methodologies with this process, and what is possible with this kind of mapping and what is not possible. So this is really an amazing breadth that we covered in just half an hour. And I'm going to try sharing my screen one last time and see if Zoom does that again.
And maybe before you end, Xavi, maybe I can stay another 5 minutes for those who have any other questions that I haven't answered, if that's okay with the Zoom owner.
Yes, we would be honored to. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. And those who want to listen.
All right, so thank you so much for being here with us. This is a link, a quick bit.ly link to join our community. And in a moment now, Azra would be sharing a feedback poll with you. Please share with us what you liked in your comments, and we can't wait to see you again.
Is the poll projected on your screens?
Okay.
We will be sharing the presentation and the recording with you. You can find the free ebook on Systems Dynamic, a short but comprehensive guide designed to blend theoretical conceptual exposure with hands-on engagement and collective building of systems models in groups.
Amazing. So I think if people want to drop out, you're more than welcome to drop out. And if you have any questions that I haven't managed to answer and you really actually care about the answer, maybe you can stay for another 5 minutes so that I can cover things that maybe I didn't manage to. And I see that there are no confused people here, which is great. Usually there are. Usually I'm one of the confused.
I don't know whether I can ask a question. I'm still here.
Go, Julius. Yeah.
Yeah, my name is Julius. I'm just joining from Australia. I'm quite familiar with system mapping, causal diagramming. But I just want to know your experience. I've posted a question, but it unfortunately wasn't asked. So in the workshops, in terms of creating the map, so who holds the pen? Is it you or the stakeholders?
Mm-hmm. By who holds the pen, you mean and the content? Yeah.
To create the map, especially
we create the map. So they provide us with all the content.
Okay.
It's usually a mess, and we create the map.
Okay. So I would imagine them just posting their ideas and here and there, and then you take the ideas and go away and then just go and create the maps. Is that how it is?
Yeah, well, with many stages, and we create
Yes.
lots of templates for them to input
Yep.
their ideas. But
Okay.
yeah, broadly speaking, they give us lots of input. We get lots of input from academic research, from interviews, from workshops, and then we create the map. Yeah, we do all the actual mapping and everything that you see, we have created.
Okay, I'll catch up with you sometime for more.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
Thanks very much. That was really fantastic and brilliant. I like the simplicity of the approach. Thanks.
Amazing. Amazing.
Yeah.
Hi, Viliana. It's Mel Woods. Really lovely to hear the work that you're doing. It really resonates with some work I'm doing on the agri-food sector and net zero. I wanted to ask you about the map itself and the validation of that with various actors that might be in the system. How do you go about that? Do you show them the map and annotate it with them physically or digitally, or are there some other ways of gathering their input? And if it's with the Kumu map, then how do you it takes, like every digital platform, it takes a little bit of adjustment, I think, to understand what's going on. Yeah, how does that work with people who maybe aren't familiar?
Yeah, so how we do it, this validation takes various shapes, interviews. With interviews, we do the Kumu working, and we just take them through the loops, and they say, yeah, that makes sense, or that's not right, or there's something missing, etc. In workshops, we do similar. If it's an online workshop, we will always have a facilitator in a small. We'll break every group into the big group into small groups, and we'll have a facilitator in each group that will kind of guide these people, and we'll be the Kumu person, and we will actually, how we do it is we take print screens of each region, and we post this print screen on Miro, and then every participant can put notes on the elements, basically, image. In person, it's fantastic. It's so messy. It's great. We have these big maps printed, and we have lots of groups working, and there's so many discussions, and they also post it, and they always have a facilitator in each group. But yeah, it is a messy process. We never really ask people to use Kumu. That's the one thing that we do. And if we use Miro, something that we've learned so much, and it's been such a loud and clear learning, that we always do a 10-minute learn how to use Miro if you haven't used it before each workshop. So we actually invite everyone to join who's a new person to Miro, so that we don't have troubles in the workshop, because we have had troubles.
Yeah, same here. Thanks. That's great. Thank you.
Any other questions that I might have missed on the chat?
Hi, Viliana. I'm Sean from Singapore. So yes, I did have a question actually. The systems process you went through was really incredible, and I'm amazed. 10 months, it was a lot of work, a lot of people involved. But I did have a question about, like, after the report, what happened? I mean, quite often in the case of a lot of this kind of work, there's a beautiful report that no one reads and doesn't do anything. So I was wondering, how did it go in your case?
Yeah, yeah, that's the sad fate of many reports, unfortunately. I think the difference with the systems mapping process is that it's a process, and a lot of our objectives are achieved in the process rather than with the final deliverable. So that's kind of important. And then we always do the system map as on invitation with a purpose. So the invitation for the Catalan Food System map was that it will be used as the basis for the strategy development. So we know kind of what's its immediate purpose. I'm seeing that it's being used for a lot more now. They've organized trainings and stuff, as I mentioned, but we would always, as I mentioned, actually in the kickoff process, we always have a purpose of the map. So why do you need the map? And we try to serve that purpose.
That's really good. I think it's really helpful. Like having it tie into like an existing strategy process, a strategy development process, helps to make it very concrete. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean.
Hello, thanks for everything today. I put a note in to say how great it was. I wrote a question about providing the rationale for systems mapping, and there's a couple of reasons. One, because I find that people who do the kind of work we do get it, and people outside the work we do don't. And we forget that you have to prove or rationalize really the basics of why this knowledge of a system, the ability to see the entire system, provides then the leverage for different people and the intelligence, collective intelligence, to then start to act or strategize about change. And it sounds so basic, but I do find that if you don't lead off with those 2 or 3 fundamental points and get people nodding their heads, you can make some mistakes. So I'm looking for language. I mean, I always start that way. I'm looking for language you might use. I'm also, the second reason is I live in Tunisia, and things here are quite simple in terms of systems change and systems perspectives and partnerships. And I could introduce the idea of systems mapping to some of my partners and emerging colleagues in different groups. And I wonder if anyone there would like to, say, do a Zoom webinar for 30 minutes on what is systems mapping and how does it help us deal with wicked problems. That kind of simple, I've opened some doors here and they're ready to understand and receive some ideas. But I guess I'm looking for partners to potentially just do a half-hour information session on the basics.
With pleasure. Yeah, with pleasure. I try. I really think that I'm not a full expert on systems thinking at all. I haven't done a master's degree or anything. I see there's a lot of people that are very dedicated on the theory side of things. But I see so little understanding and implement and use of systems thinking in practice, and that's I guess my mission is to bring it to practice, and that's why I'm trying to get the language a bit more simpler as well. And persuading those partners is very hard, but I think some of the main points that I use is firstly the fact that everyone or most people design interventions with their best intention.
Yes.
And more often than not, there are unintended consequences, and opening their eyes to some unintended consequences by simple examples. Let's say in the food system, with the energy transition, etc. There is a very fun little short, super simple video on cats in Borneo on unintended consequences. It's a YouTube video.
Cats in Borneo?
Cats in Borneo. And I don't know, Joss, maybe you could share it, or Xavi or someone. There's a YouTube video that is so helpful for this kind of understanding of unintended consequences. That's a really nice little way to show people how their best intentions don't always lead to the best outcomes. And what else was there? Having examples and some basic kind of benefits of integrating a full system approach. And also not to scare them. A lot of people think, oh my God, if I have to change if it's systems thinking, I have to change the whole system. And the idea that you're not going to change the whole system, you're going to be a small player in contributing to the system's change. But how do we really maximize your impact? I'm talking about impact, not scale, in this contribution with your limited resources.
Thank you.
We have Renike.
Okay. I have a question about you, more technical, because you have enablers and inhibitors, and then you do a set analysis, and then make feedback loops. What is the connection between them? Is it are the feedback loops always there must always, you can't just take an inhibitor, but you always have to make a difference in the feedback loops between the structural items and the attitudinal items?
Okay, I get your question. Don't worry, I understand. It's a confusing process. So why we use even this term structural, attitudinal, and transactional is really to help us think more deeply. Is to get us often the first things that come to our mind are structural. Oh, is this this protocol, this building, this infrastructure, etc. It's very easy to think of the structural. It's very hard to think of the attitudinal stuff, which are things like societal norms and what perceptions, awareness, etc. And it's really hard to think of the transactional factors. These are interactions between people, how we communicate, how we lead, its leadership styles, etc. So it's really just to get us thinking and deepen our thinking. And this SAT leads us to the loops because it has expanded our understanding of the system. It has really expanded our understanding of the causes and the effects. And we usually, the next step is the loops, because we often, so when we're constructing a loop, we start by thinking, what is the story I want to tell in this loop? And then what is the upstream cause of this story? And then having done this SAT analysis, you're already thinking of upstream causes and you already know, and then you go. So it's a stepping stone. It's not something that the SAT is not something that you see in the final product. It's not in the Como presentation, but it's really for you as a mapper to start organizing your thoughts and deepening your thoughts and get better at making loops.
Okay. Thanks.
No worries. Okay.
We have Dora's hand up.
Dora, do you want to say?
Sorry, I was looking for the mute button. Yeah, my question is not maybe directly related to this, but in mapping and awareness raising in general. And so I'm just curious in your experience, because in the development field and quite often you come across projects, etc., that only exist, or not only, but the ultimate purpose of its existence is to stay alive and to stay employed. So when people realize, if they realize that what they do is not actually contributing to solving that issue they are working on, but simply keeping themselves occupied, have you come across, what is the reaction? Do people like face up to these kind of controversies?
So thank you so much for bringing that up. Yes, it has happened in systems mapping processes for people to really to feel a bit of the pain of almost their realization of their lack of impact, right? And that leads to either a bit of a dark place or like empowerment to change your contribution, to reshift in the system. Often, so the systems mapping is kind of empowering process because it really gives you all the different perspectives and all the different possibilities of contributing. But I don't have a magic actually answer on this. What we also use in this context sometimes is the two-loop model, which explains how systems transform. So a dominant system always loses dominance, and a new system always emerges, and these actors always reshift, right? And that can be also empowering. And also, actually, most people want to have an impact, and they want to reposition themselves in a more impactful role. Thanks, Jos, for sharing the two-loop model. I'm aware we are about 17 minutes after the meeting. So maybe last question, if there's any, and to wrap up just as.
Okay. Well, I think it's John, you unmuted yourself.
Well, I was going to ask a question about the cooperative model, because I think a lot of your research can help justify investment in a much more shared economy. And I would have thought that the cooperative people would be much more keen to engage a lot of your research. So that I don't know whether, did you come across that cooperative models that in business or not?
Thank you, John. We, for example, right now, we are applying for a systems mapping project with an alliance of 38 partners. And they're finding that approach very useful because it will bring the partners all aligned on one understanding of the system that they are trying to achieve, and one understanding of how they're where their leverage opportunities will be. We haven't worked with more of the traditional cooperative structures, but I feel that it will be relevant, but it's just we haven't had access to them.
I think it's very relevant, and I think you're missing a trick if you don't approach cooperatives. I'm in touch with cooperatives all the time, so if you want to email me, I can connect you. It's no problem.
Yeah, I will get in touch, John. Thank you.
Pleasure. Excellent presentation, by the way. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Viliana and the team at Systems Innovation, and all of you for sharing this time with us. Happy Thanksgiving for who's celebrating, and we hope to see you in our community, online community, as well as in our next session. Thank you.